You know what's interesting? Today I was with one of my closest friends, basically a soul sister. And I was talking to her and I was like, by the way, like, when did the pandemic end? It was like 2022, like mid-end 2022 or 2024. We're like summer of 2024. So has it been like 2 years or a little less than 2 years that we were actually in the whole entire world freed? Um, and I was talking to her and I was like, by the way, I think like there has been there has been trauma when the pandemic took place. The entire world, the entire human species has been traumatized. And it's interesting because even though I was so happy, not that I wasn't bouncing off walls, but I felt this kind of serenity inside. I knew that we were okay. I didn't believe half the crap, or I wasn't one of those people that was like, oh my God, you know? Well, you know what? I was. Every time I watched the news and read Facebook, I started to rile up. But my riling up was basically all about like, oh my God, can we find harmony between everybody? Can like there can be coherency between everyone? That's always the thing, right? So I would like get on Facebook and I'd be like, no, she means this or he means that. And can we all just align and stand together? Can we all just like be together? Why are we segregating and why are we following? Why are we being manipulated? And why are we agreeing with this manipulation? So, but in general, it felt more of like it, and I'm sure so many of you felt this way. How many of you, I mean, so many people I've met, so many clients are like, I was relieved. It was like, I didn't have to go out and I didn't have to rush and I had to deal with all these emotions showing up. And it was such a great moment in time. But in general, outside of what us spiritual beings were able to see the truth of the matter, um, the body, the body went through a lot of trauma. The news was insane. What they were sharing, the fear was, they just heightened the fear, and the entire world, could you imagine the craziness? The entire world was locked at home. At home. No one could see friends or family or anything, locked at home. Like, I don't think anyone is noticing the magnitude of what we went through because, like usual, we just move on, but we don't address or pay close attention to like, the world went through a trauma. Whether you enjoyed it or not, there was trauma. Okay. All of a sudden we were treated like 2-year-olds. We were locked in. We were condemned. We were told like from this hour you go home. We had a curfew. We had this, but the whole world was going through it. The entire world. And then like 2 years later, we're all like skipping around with our lives, but our trauma is still in the body. The trauma of what happened, the trauma of our freedom being taken away just like that. Just like that, freedom taken away. Just like that, fear was injected beyond. It was like, fear. Like, just like that. It's so easy to be manipulated, right? To be so fear-based and to go through trauma. So people were dying left, right, and like elders were dying, and there was news about, conspiracy theories, and then this and that, and take the vaccine, don't take it. And it was just mayhem and segregating between all human beings and wars and fights and families not talking. And it was crazy. It was crazy. And you couldn't even go out to see people. So anyone who had FOMO, me, I had great FOMO, which I discovered. Okay. I was like, oh, I can't breathe. I can't see anyone. I'm trapped. But a part of me felt relaxed and calm that there was no one else going out. There was no one else doing anything. So it's fine if I just stayed home. That's FOMO. I could talk about FOMO. If you're interested to know more about FOMO, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, or if you have FOMO, let me know. But damn, FOMO is insane. It was like double-edged. Anyway, so whatever we are all suffering through during the spiritual awakening, please let's not forget that less than 2 years ago, we were all locked in. We were locked down with curfews all around the world, injected with fear and and trauma, and we're going about our lives today, and yet depression has gone even further up, anxieties and depressions and everything. People are just like, they're not in the mood to work 9 to 5s anymore. Everyone's like looking for something else, like they're looking for a bigger meaning in life. Everyone's, a lot more people are now into this spiritual journey and awakening, and people are looking for like, what's my purpose here? Oh my God, like so many people awakened during that period, which is a great thing. Like, it's a good thing we all got locked down so we can all sit with ourselves instead of constantly being stimulated. Although a lot of people sat with their phones, stimulated by the news, which was terrible and horrible, including me the first 3 months. And then I was like, screw this. This is stupid. But in general, who else thought it was stupid? Anyway, stupid to basically look at the fear and just like inject more fear in oneself. But in general, what I came to understand today, and I feel like it just channeled through me, it's like, what? We need to chill. We need to understand that the whole world's body is in trauma. So even if my trauma isn't as intense as somebody else's trauma who actually had an elderly pass and they couldn't see them and they couldn't go to their funeral, that's just horrid, then, or ended up in the hospital, like that's crazy trauma. But I didn't have their trauma. My body was still traumatized, but the collective trauma of the world, it isn't like, oh, this only happened in Canada. Oh, it was only in Argentina. No, the world. Can you imagine, like, could you fathom the grandness of it? This is what drives me crazy. Like, I'm thinking, like, have we all forgotten? Like, are we not dealing with this? Are we like, disassociated from that because it was so fearful? But what if we looked at the truth of what happened and just been like, okay, yes, that was a trauma. Yes, the whole world is going through a trauma, right? Nobody has purged this trauma. We're still releasing this trauma, right? But we're not even talking about it, right? And we're all like, okay, going into our childhood to talk about, and going into child trauma, our timeline, our, past lives. Who cares about your past life? Honestly, this is the life. Like, why dredge up all that stuff? Just purge here. That's a whole other episode. But like, you're going through this right now, and we're healing like child traumas and limiting beliefs. But damn, 2 years ago, a world trauma happened that we need to look at, pay attention to, feel, comprehend, and know that, you know what, even if I purged a lot of mine, or my trauma wasn't as severe, it was still trauma. And there's no comparison by the trauma. It's not because not one of my elderlies passed and I couldn't see them that I can't recognize that I had trauma in the body, or not because I didn't end up in the hospital doesn't mean I didn't end up trauma. Hearing about all these deaths caused trauma. Hearing about being locked in at home caused this trauma. Not being able to see family or friends caused trauma, right? Even trauma of being like curfew and lock-in was trauma, right? To hear that, oh my God, what are we going to? Is the world ending? Trauma, right? Even if I didn't believe it in my system, but I was hearing it, trauma. So we all went through it. The world, I'm going to keep repeating this, the world, every human being on this planet went through it. And we were all going through it together for at least 2 years or 2.5 years. Trauma. And it hasn't been like if you go through a trauma, it takes you a while to allow that trauma out of the system. So notice everyone around you. Notice even yourself. Be kind to yourself. If you're like, oh, but I don't have many issues, or I've worked through my issues, or, oh, why do issues? Your body has trauma. We were in lockdown, the world, for over 2 years. Trauma. So if you're upside down, if you're confused, if there's foggy minds, if you don't know what's right or wrong anymore, if you don't know who you are and who you're not, you are going through a spiritual awakening, and there was trauma in the body. So we can all be kinder to each other. We can be kind to ourselves, for God's sake. Be like, you know what? We just came out of a crazy time, and can I give myself permission to easily be kinder to myself and ease my way through this experience, because that was a global trauma, and then we have our own personal traumas, right? And then we have our childhood traumas. But this was a massive one from the whole world. So you might be also feeling the collective, which the collective hasn't healed yet. Like, so all I'm hearing is the collective has not healed. Nobody has healed, and everybody's trying to move on with life and looking for their new direction, but they cannot find their new direction because they're not slowing down. They're not trying to let it go. They're not accepting that this was trauma. They're not seeing it for what it is. And it's time for them, for all of us, to let it go. For all of us to see it for what it is, and to forgive ourselves for not being faster in our spiritual awakening, which we actually are. I'm hearing we are super fast. We are at the speed of light. We're really fast with all this trauma. So we're like superheroes right now. So be kind to yourself. Oh, I'm hearing we are superheroes of our time, with such a traumatizing experience from the collective for the time we were all in lockdown. And we're going through a spiritual awakening to top it off. And that was the mark of the beginning of a global spiritual awakening. And it's still unfolding. But for us, the sensitive, the empaths, the light workers, it's an exhausting body time. It's an exhausting human time for mental and our body. So yeah, please don't forget that. I just remembered it, and I decided, I remembered it today with my friend, and I was like, you know what? I decide to be a lot kinder now also, because even if nothing specific is happening in my life, which if you watched my last video, it did, 2 weeks ago, but there's also trauma in the body. So from the lockdowns, from the insanity that took place. And it's as if we were gaslighted and manipulated, and boom, it's done. Nobody speaks about it. Nobody's talking about it. It's so weird. It's like, did it happen? Did it not? Yeah, it happened, but we laugh about it. Nobody talks about it. What's going on? Anyway, all I'm hearing is, when you're in trauma, you have to disassociate. So the safest way people know how to handle trauma is disassociating, but the new way of handling trauma is to associate 100% with it, see it for what it is, allow it to pass through, and move on. I'm seeing this energy, like it needs to pass through and it moves in. So it passes from top to bottom, I'm seeing, and it looks like a blue liquid light, and then out through the body, through the feet, into the earth. So it's like the earth is taking it all back in, and it's taking it all back in. That's all I'm to transform it, transmute it, but taking it all back in. Anyway, I wanted to share this. So if you are feeling depressed, anxious, alone, confused, don't know, just don't forget that there was a crazy pandemic 2 years ago that we all went through, that is adding to the stress of your body and your nervous system and the trauma. So it's not only your childhood trauma, it's that added to the world trauma that happened, and you're feeling the vibrations of everyone else around you. So thank you, Divinity, for sharing that insight with me. I'm going to personally spend kinder time with myself, and keep that in memory, in check. Be like, oh, I need to be gentler. Rain is suffering, and I need to just be gentler. Like, it's okay. It's okay if I'm still confused. It's okay if I don't get it. It's okay. You are okay if you don't get it. You are okay if you're feeling still alone. You are okay. You're always okay. Don't worry about it. So just share with me, how does this resonate with you? Does it click? Does it make sense? Did you forget about it? Are you disassociated from it? Yeah, let me know. And I actually have something you can do, which is the one thing that I noticed that would really help through this is when you actually speak it out loud. Speak it out loud to yourself, to a friend. Be like, 2 years ago, the world was locked down. So it's okay what I'm going through and what we're all going through. It's like this pocket of energy needs to come out. And we need to expose it. It needs to just be around. It needs to be okay to say. It needs to be okay to say and okay to admit that it was crazy. And we were part of a history, a pivotal part of history. But it hurt. So anyway, love you all. Take care of yourselves. Please hit the subscribe button for more of this truth saying. And press like, leave your comments at the bottom. Tell me how you feel. And at the same time, I recommend that you go to my Expand with Mel and Rain. It's also a YouTube channel with podcasts that you can watch and enjoy, where I actually channel a lot of information. And Mel asks a lot of questions and shares what she's going through. And I just sit and allow divinity to channel through me. And you get a lot of exciting and interesting and new ways of seeing things that I also learn from. I learn from these channelings. So take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful time with your day and your life. And just please remember, you are not alone. You're not alone, darling. I'm with you. I'm always with you. And I love you deeply.